Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to day 2 of the FBAA Melbourne Summit here in Victorian Tas. Hopefully everybody can hear me on this lovely sunny second day of spring. I'd just like to welcome you all aboard today for a continuation of yesterday's sessions. My name is Brett Spencer. I am the Victorian Tasmanian State President here at the FBAA. And I want to, thank you for joining us for our Getting Back to Business with the FBAA Summit today. Again, it's unfortunate that we don't have face-to-face. It would be still great to do this. And I think with today's case numbers going up again, I think face-to-face for 2021 is probably going to be ruled out for the rest of the year. So this is as close as face-to-face we're going to get for a while, I'm afraid. Let's get started with today's session. I'd like to thank all of our sponsors. They're all sitting here on the screen now. Have a look. You'll hear from a number of them today. You heard from a number of them yesterday as well. For attending today's event, you'll get 1.5 CPD hours. You'll get a link sent to you for that, as well as a survey following today's session. So please complete those and then get your link and use that for your CPD certification for the year. Look, with all of our sponsors, they continue, whether it's face-to-face or whether it's online through the eSummits, continue to support us and our industry and yourselves. And I really want to thank them for that continued support during the year. You'll hear from some of them today. I've known a number of them for a long, long time. They're all great people. Even those that aren't great people will be called great people because we want them to continue sponsoring and being great for all of you guys. I can see Cameron laughing at that one too, so I won't name names there, Cam. Look, you'll get all of their contact details so you can spam them after the event. Send them all your funny memes. I know I've been getting a lot of them. And with your membership, guys, don't forget that the more members we get into our organisation, the greater and bigger that we are, the happier that Mr. White becomes, the happier that the board becomes. As a member, don't forget you'll get 10% off your membership each year or next year if you refer any members. And we've got this great transfer under our MTI program. No fees, no docs, no worries. You're an existing member with the other organisation. You can transfer over to the FBAA very, very easily. Don't forget, download your app. It's a pretty cool app. I've downloaded it. I use it on my phone. I really like it's been built in conjunction with our new CRM system. And in the members area, there's a whole range of new member benefits too. I know I've already taken advantage of some of the purchase of the gift cards, seeing as I can't go shopping, being great birthday presents. I think some of them are up to sort of 5% discounts on the gift cards. So I've already bought a few of those, which is great. The broker support program, guys, I really want you to focus on that in the members area. Have a look at the things that we've got listed there. Have a look at what's available. We've added, as I said yesterday, the BID digital educational and knowledge testing course information is there. There's a lot of information about what you can use for your own businesses and for your clients' businesses, as well as just for yourself, and how you are able to take advantage of all of those areas. So, given all that, I would, well, there we go. I've gone ahead of the broker support program. One of the things on that broker support program is have a look into the mental health stuff. At this stage of lockdown, and I think we should congratulate ourselves for about to hit a world record for the number of days we've been in lockdown in Victoria, is really reach out to people. Next week on the 9th, we have the Are You OK Day here at the FBAA that Peter's headlining, and is going to be broadcast right across the country. I really encourage you to log online to that, and don't be afraid to reach out to myself, to any of the FBAA staff, any of the sponsors, your families, your friends, and don't be afraid just to ask a stranger whether they're okay. You know, in this time, we're all struggling in varying degrees, and it's important to be there for each other. So today's conference was going to kick off with a very old friend of mine and Whitey's, Ashley Playstead. He was going to come on and talk to us about building the right mind and brain and mindset for business life and success. And Ash always gets asked is, what the heck is your secret sauce to making all this happen? Ash then states that his approach is really simple. If you want to rapidly improve any facet of your life, it starts with building yourself a bulletproof mindset. Whilst most coaches and instructors want to fundamentally spew out more information that goes in one ear and out the other ear, he works with what you already have and what you already know. Many of the world's most successful people have what you would consider unorthodox thought processes. I can attest to that, knowing some people very successful. But their action-taking and habitual thought is 100% congruent with their desires in life. It's quite simple, he says. Ash looks to shift your mind out of everything mastery and move it into performance mastery. So when you master what you can control, those skills become transferable to any part of your life and business. Ash's core belief is mastery of self is mastery of everything. It really is a pertinent point that he talks about that. My grandfather, who's passed away, lived through wars in Germany, always used to say to me, Brett, learn to control and stress about the things that you can control in your life. If you can't control it, don't worry about it. It really does create a great sense. And I think Ash is going to talk, we're going to talk a lot more about how you can use those steps towards self-mastery. So
thank you so much for that lovely introduction. It is wonderful to be here today. I just wanted to firstly thank the FBAA, Peter, Mariah and your team for organising these events and being so nimble and flexible with pivoting them to online. Obviously, we'd all like to be face-to-face, but we're all getting pretty used to Zoom and how to navigate our way around that. So thank you so much, FBA, and also just wanted to acknowledge all the other really interesting and wonderful speakers today. What a great group of speakers, interesting topics, and of course the sponsors for today's event. Thank you so much for helping make these events happen. Now, for me, what I'll do is the first thing I'll do is I'll share my screen. So my presentation is on the screen. Now, before I get started on my subject today, building the right brain mindset for business and life success, I'll just give you a little bit of a background on me. Not too long. Haven't been in the industry quite as long as Pete, but I have been in the industry a long time. My story in broking started in the mid-90s when I came out of corporate background. I worked in the finance industry, but on a wage and a salary for a corporation. Entered mortgage broking in about 97, or it was 97. I joined Aussie Home Loans, spent a little bit of time there learning the ropes, and then moved into starting my own business. And over the following sort of 10, 15 years, started and built and exited all of those businesses. And as I went through those reiterations, I was constantly trying new things, figuring things out, building teams, finding loans, approving loans, even collecting loans, overdues at one stage back in the mortgage management days. So I guess you could say I've been involved in every part of the credit cycle from A to Z. So I've got a pretty broad experience of life in every part of the credit cycle. And then, of course, in the mid-2010s, I transitioned into coaching full-time, even though I'd probably been coaching more or less during building those businesses, both clients and team members and so forth. So that's a little bit of my story. I guess I've spent the better part of 3 to 4 decades trying everything in life and business to find out what works. Okay, so yeah, that's a little bit about my background. So let's go on to the first slide, and I'll give you a bit of a run through a bit of an agenda for today. So I've told you a little bit about myself. I want to talk a little bit about how I define a business success, a little bit about how we would define life success, and then today I'm going to talk about blueprinting, managing external events like COVID and our mental health. Also, why we need a roadmap, and then a little bit about the building blocks of well-being, of which there's 3 main areas. One is beginning with a mindset shift. Then there's the 4 pillars of well-being. And then there's what I call the Olympian team model for managing and maintaining mental health and business health that go together, or mental health and business success. So I guess as I'm talking, I probably interpose the words health and success across, but they both essentially are the same thing for me. Business and life success indivisible from business and life health. So let's move on a little bit to what I would call business success. So for me, particularly in the mortgage broking industry, business success is what I would describe as transitioning from a job or being self-employed, but essentially a job as a mortgage broker, which is where we generally all start, to a business. So I consider having a successful business in mortgage broking to owning a business that does mortgage broking as opposed to being a mortgage broker. Now, when you've got a successful business that does mortgage broking, you can still be a mortgage broker in that business, but essentially that's the difference that I see between being a broker, a self-employed broker, or an employed broker, and having a broking business. So, you know, the question you would probably ask yourself around that to understand whether you've got a business or a job is, would someone want to buy your business as opposed to buying your trail book? If your business is simply a value of your trail book, it's not a business. A business is valued at, you know, the ability for someone else to come in and take over running it, systems and processes and team and so forth. Now, life success for me is when we tend to speak to ourselves in the same way as we want to act in the real world. In other words, our inner state matches our exterior state. And you'll see I'll talk a lot about this at various stages in this presentation. But that's what I consider a balanced life, a success. And success is a bit of a nebulous topic, right? We all have a different definition of success. But in the confines of this presentation, that's what I consider, you know, success to be, when your inner world, the way you think, is the same as the way you act in the world. So I could probably even define that a little bit further and use a couple of words that you may or may not have heard before. That's introception and extraoception. So introception is, I guess, the internal sensory system where our physical and emotional states are noticed, recognized and responded to. So it's how we feel and sense our inner self, and we notice and recognize and respond to our inner state. Extraoception is our sensitivity to external stimuli and events, such as, you know, things that are outside your body, your exterior world, and how we perceive that external environment and how that affects our inclusive or overall attention. And that's why it takes blueprinting after we make a mindset shift in our mind to build out this internal and external balanced world in both life and business. So with that being said, let's move on to the next slide. Now, talking about blueprinting quickly, what do we mean by blueprinting? So we're all in the mortgage industry. We all deal with people either buying and building homes. So let's use a metaphor here about building a home. You know, to build a home, we need a couple of things, right? We need architectural drawings. This is the blueprint. So you don't go out and just start building a home based on something that's in your head. We get drawings made up, the design, so that we know what we are building. And importantly, what the purpose of that building is. So these things have got to be connected. So the blueprint has got to make sense. That is the guide that shows us what and why we are building something. That's what a blueprint is for. We're building a house that looks like this, and here's the design. And the reason we're building it is we're going to live in it, or we might rent it out for passive income. So, you know, in that context of building your own mind, comparing it to building your own home, let's talk a little bit about what I would call self-containment. And this is the skill and ability to stay on track and get back on track quickly when life throws curveballs at us, you know, which it always does. I'll talk a little bit about this more later in the presentation, I should say. So self-containment is when our state of being something we control internally, as opposed to being overly affected by the curveballs that life throws at us. And particularly in this industry that we know, the mortgage industry, mortgage broking, there's always lots of curveballs, right? And we could probably fill a book with those curveballs, which are totally over and above, you know, normal life events. And then of course we customize those designs, going back to the blueprinting for a house. We have an architectural set of drawings, and then we might customize them to have exactly the house that we want. All right, so it gives us, as I've got on the slide here, a framework to follow that is proven to deliver the result that we want. And it is a path that guides us, as I said, whilst also encouraging and allowing some customization to have the house that we want, or the mind that we want, the business that we want. So that's what blueprinting means in this context. All right, just to talk a little bit about external events and mental health. So, question I want to ask here, is it an obstacle or is it an opportunity? And we know that, look, we can't change what's out of our control, but we can change the stories we tell ourselves about those things. Just want to repeat that. Even simple as that sounds, we can't change what happens mostly out in the world, those external events, such as COVID-19 and the pandemic, but we can change the stories we tell ourselves about them. This is what we mean by changing our story about COVID-19 without actually changing COVID-19. And just as an example of this, and I hope this relates, there might even be you know, some people in the audience who I've worked with, but in our broker coaching business, the 10X Broker, going back to probably about March, April, May last year, when COVID was really ramping up and there's a lot of fear around, and a lot of brokers were really wondering what was going to happen. So we got together with our members and we really encouraged them to look at this pandemic and the lockdown, which was just looming, as an opportunity to work on their business, rather than as a problem to batten down the hatches and, you know, survive. We actually repositioned it as an opportunity to work on your business and not just survive, but thrive, and also to be ready for when the market starts to take off again, which it did. And we all know what's happened in the last 6 to 9 months in the property and mortgage market. Despite the pandemic still being about, it's gone ballistic. So a lot of our 10X members are absolutely flourishing now because they changed the stories and got to work building the infrastructure of their business, ready for things to take off again. So they turned an obstacle into an opportunity simply by changing stories. It's a really important lesson, and I hope, you know, that resonates. It's one of the key markers of all people that have shifted mindsets, and it's a key building block in rebuilding your mind, brain for success, is changing the stories we tell ourselves. So why a roadmap? Now, once again, most of these concepts are fairly simple, but they're really powerful. We need a roadmap if we're going somewhere in the car, for example, and we need a roadmap in life and business. Now, why do we need a roadmap? Because we need to know where the goal is. Where are we heading? Okay, so that's the big picture. So where is the destination that we're looking to get to? Then the map allows us to watch each step along the way and make sure that we're staying on track. But equally important, in fact, I would almost argue more importantly, is it allows us to get back on track. It's like the rudder on the boat. You know, we occasionally speed off track a little bit, but if we've got a map to reference back to, we can get ourselves back on track fairly quickly. So a map is super, super important in business and in life. Yeah, we'll all drift off track occasionally, but the map allows us to get back on track. And what does that give us? You know, it gives us the how, in, you know, to go further from what I said before about the blueprint being the what and the why. The roadmap shows us the how. How are we going to achieve that blueprint? So the how in building a house metaphor would be the building contract that outlined all the different stages of the construction, you know, the slab down, the frame up, the fit out, etc. So that's what the roadmap shows us. That's the pathway to get the blueprint executed. Okay, so I hope that makes good sense. And it's really vital. It shows us the path. It shows us where to place our attention and our energy and our time. So I would call that the antidote to distraction, as I've got on the screen there, right? Very important that we understand that. And what does having an antidote to distraction mean? What does having a roadmap mean? It means that we have the confidence and the belief and the focus to stay on track. I think one of the biggest challenges that we all have in life and business and our industry is a lot of distractions, a lot of things going on, a lot of moving parts in our lives and in the world. So having a roadmap to follow that we know is proven to take us where we want to go is very important, in having the confidence to make decisions, the belief to make decisions, and the focus to stay on track and ignore distractions. And in an incredibly distracted world, that is really, really powerful. So let's just talk about the building blocks now, the building blocks to life and business success. I've sort of distilled it down into 3 sections. One is beginning with a mindset shift, which I've spoken about a bit already, and I'll speak about a little bit more in a moment. The 4 pillars of well-being, and the Olympian model, the Olympian team model of establishing and maintaining your mental health and freeing you up to focus on what you do best and what you enjoy the most. So let's dive into those a little bit more specifically. Here we go. It's all on the screen, I think. Good. So I mentioned briefly before interoception and extraoception. Now, they're fancy sounding words. Interoception simply means your inner state, right? And that's very important that we understand what those 2 things are, because the goal here is to align your internal and external worlds as much as possible. Your lived experiences, how you go about life and how you perceive the world, is the same as your internal experience of the world, okay? And the stories that we tell ourselves determine our inner state. This is a really powerful sentence. The stories we tell ourselves determine our inner state. Our inner state determines our thoughts. Our thoughts determine our actions, and it's our actions that determine our reality in business and in life. So the logic then is, if you want to change your reality, you change the stories. Now, I might just repeat that. The stories we tell ourselves determine our inner state. Our inner state then determines our thoughts, our thinking. Our thoughts determine what action we take, and the action we take determines the reality that we create for ourselves. So if we want to create a new reality, a blueprint for success in life and business, we need to change the stories we tell ourselves. I want to mention, and I'll talk about this in a bit more length at the end, the 10 consecutive days challenge. This is something I've borrowed from Tony Robbins, and I'll talk about it a little bit more at the end. It's a really terrific place to start with shifting your mindset. It's where the work to transform and change those stories starts. You know, so we begin training our mind to operate and respond differently to the events of daily life. And the truth of it is that how we respond to the small things in life is generally how we'll respond to the major things in life. So if we want to have a big effect down the track, we start working on the small things now. So I'll get to a description of what the 10-day challenge looks like at the end, but this is how we start with a mindset shift. So we've got to change the way we think before anything else can be changed. So let's talk a little bit about the 4 pillars of well-being. Okay, so awareness, which is our attentiveness to our environment, our bodily sensations, our thoughts and feelings. This is the interoception, the degree to which we notice or not the details of our own experience. So just have a think about that. You know, how aware are you of your own experience, of how you are in the world? What's your internal thoughts and feelings and bodily sensations. How connected are you to that inner world? That's awareness. Connection, number 2, is how related and connected we are to others and the world around us. So the degree to which we practice appreciation or gratitude, you might want to call it, kindness and compassion. So connection is very important. Insight, this is how much and how often we cultivate curiosity and self-knowledge. This is really, really important. The interest and commitment we have to personal development and personal growth. This is often referred to as having a growth mindset. Insight. And purpose. Purpose is probably the biggest one. Purpose tends to be the fuel in the engine that drives everything. The degree to which we understand our values and our motivations, and then using them as the North Star to guide us, by which we consider and guide our own decision making, our purpose. Why are we doing what we're doing? What is our underlying purpose? These are the 4 pillars of well-being, and each of these pillars zeroes in on specific skills that can be learned and strengthened over time. Now, obviously, I can go into these in more depth and probably will in the course that will be available on the FBAA website. And they have been studied in laboratory environments and shown to improve over time with training. So I would argue that if we're going to find a sense of happiness and balance in our work and life and well-being, we need to cultivate each of them in equal measure. So they're not separate. Instead, they build on top of one another. So that's why I call them building blocks. They build on top of each other. They're not separate to each other. Now, interestingly, last July, just gone, there's a foundation in the States called the Kaiser Family Foundation that conducted a poll of adults in the US, and more than 50% of US adults reported a decline in their mental health due to the worry and stress over the pandemic, which is up from 30-odd% in March of 2020. Now, given how stressful the past 12 months have been, this framework, the 4 pillars, offers us something concrete to consider as we all search for an antidote to our own sort of malaise, which, particularly with where we're all at now with lockdowns and pathways and vaccination targets, and really getting overwhelmed a bit by that. So this gives us an antidote and a framework to pull ourselves out of that. So the framework considers, that there's a difference between the kind of happiness that depends on what happens to us in a day and a sense of well-being that comes from within. Again, this is introception versus extraception. So it's about building and on top of the kind of happiness and fulfillment and success in business and life, that blueprinting that comes from what happens to us in a day, versus what I'm advocating, which is a sense of well-being that comes from within and is largely immune to external events. First kind of happiness, the external one, can easily take a dive when there's adversity, right? Such as in this time of lockdown and recession, or almost recession, where bad things seem to happen every day. It's catastrophizing out there. But the second, the kind I'm getting at, offers a sort of inoculation, which is a popular word, vaccination. It offers an inoculation against these ups and downs. A meditation coach, a friend of mine, actually recently called it being happy for no reason. Right? So lock that in. Being happy for no reason is the best kind of happy. But it's really the 4th pillar, the sort of the foundational one for me, which is purpose. That's the one I'm really interested in. So what kind of reflection can we make about purpose? Can we find a sense of meaning larger than our own self-interest? And maybe this upcoming new year, which seems to be rolling around way too quickly, will give us the opportunity for a new take on how we bolster and build our well-being. So when you're thinking about your planning and your goal setting for the coming year, think about building a framework for well-being rather than focusing on a lot of traditional goals. And and perhaps connecting with a sense of purpose might be the best possible resolution we can make. Now, moving on to the Olympian team model, which I've spoken about before, so I'll cover it here reasonably quickly. Now, none of us is an island, right? And we need to stop thinking that we can do everything, that we can fix everything, that we can get over it and plow on. So my opinion on this is that our business and mental health is a team effort. Of course, like in the Olympics, which is where this Olympian team model comes from, you have to run the race, but you have a team of people around you. And you only got to listen to any Olympic athlete that's interviewed when they medal. They're always giving thanks to the various people in their team, that they work with, that keep them supported, keep them on track, free them up to focus on what they need to do to run the race to the best of their ability. Okay, that's the Olympian team model. And, of course, the same applies with blueprinting your mind, brain for success in both business and life. It does come down to you, of course. However, you're not and should not be alone, because we all need help and guidance. And that's why I say personal health and wellbeing is a team effort. Now, what are the 5 team members, if you like, of the Olympian team model? We've got your inner, that's your mindset. I've spoken about that. That's how you think about yourself, your inner state, the stories you tell yourself, and where you find happiness. Do you need your happiness drawn from what happens out in the world, or can you rely on being happy for no reason? Then there's your staff. Now, you guys are all mortgage brokers. You might have team members already building a business. So that's your staff members in your business. That's also part of your team and part of the culture that you want to build in your business. That plays a very important role in blueprinting your life and business for sort of balanced and consistent success. Then there's the one I call the Confidant. That's the one person that you have in your world that you would tell anything to, but you can speak honestly, openly, and with vulnerability, and without being judged or measured in any way. So that's the one person that we can speak to. This could be a family member, it could be a friend, it could be a coach that you can go to and have those really honest conversations anytime that you need to in a judgment-free zone, okay? Very important. Then we've got the club, that's our community. This is probably the one that's been sort of threatened the most at the moment. Now, your club might be might be a sporting club. It could be other mortgage brokers like today. It's a community where you feel part of things that's sort of generally separate to your home life and separate to your work life, your customers. You've got this other sort of third world where you've got a community of like-minded people where you feel part of things, you feel part of the community, you feel connected, and you share common experiences, whether it's sporting, business, it could be something like Rotary or Apex or BNI, those sorts of communities. And then the last one is advice. Now, these are generally either coaches or advisors around you that help build a strategy and keep you on track to that strategy with building your business and, of course, your, I'm calling it your mental health, but essentially it's your well-being, right? So your business and life well-being. They're the 5 team members that go in the Olympian team model. Now, let's go to a bit of a summary. Now, there's a couple of things I want to touch on here with the summary. First thing is FBAA have kindly organised for some short courses to come off the back of this presentation that you can access anytime at the FBAA website. I'm not exactly sure when they'll be up and available, but it should be fairly soon. So you can go in there and revisit all of these topics, watch some really sort of brief but on point videos that I can guide you through a process and a course to follow to reference and get back on track with all of these topics to help you build that blueprint for life and business success. So those short courses will be on the FBAA site fairly soon. Now, the other thing, I said that I wanted to talk a little bit more at length about the 10-day consecutive challenge. As I said, this was created by Tony Robbins quite a long time ago. I think it's part of his Awaken the Giant Within program. I've never done it, but I read his book, and I love this challenge as a trigger point or as a starting point to start shifting your mindset. So let me just go through it quickly. It's a challenge that you need to complete 10 consecutive days following 4 separate rules until you've completed the 10 consecutive days without any glitch whatsoever. And it's designed to kickstart the process of retraining your mind into a new version, targeting your best self. So rule number 1, for the next 10 consecutive days, you're not allowed to dwell on any non-resourceful thoughts or feelings. You have to refuse to indulge in any disempowering thoughts of self-talk, and you have to immediately step away from negative inner talk or inner vocabulary or even metaphors. So this rule is you must immediately halt yourself from dwelling on negative and non-resourceful thoughts and feelings, which happens to all of us dozens, if not hundreds of times during a day. So that's rule number 1. Rule number 2, when you do catch yourself beginning to focus on the negative too much, which you almost certainly will, you immediately need to use what I'm calling, that appreciation technique to redirect your focus towards more positive emotional state. I spoke about that earlier. Different people call this situational gratitude or on the fly gratitude, so that when something negative, a negative thought happens and you do find yourself dwelling on it, I want you to immediately shift to a different form of self-talk. So instead of the negative talk, short-circuit it by posing the following questions to yourself as your first line of attack. Now, examples of these sorts of questions could be, what's great about this? What's not ideal yet? What can I learn about myself from this? This is one that I did some time ago that really fundamentally changed my life. No matter what happened to me, whether it's somebody annoying you in traffic, somebody saying something that might trigger you, seeing something on the news that might make you angry, I trained myself to, instead of falling down into a state of dwelling on that negative news, I used it as a trigger to say to myself, what can I learn from this? What's great about this? What's not ideal about this situation yet? And that very quickly got me back onto the right path. Simple as that sounds, it takes a fair bit of work. So that's rule number 2. You've got to catch yourself and pivot to different questions. His course also talks about morning empowering questions and evening empowering statements. So in the morning, you have to spend 5 minutes, as soon as you wake up, asking yourself 3 to 5 empowering questions. Because in the morning, if you do that, like, what can I achieve today? What's 3 amazing things I can do? What's a short power list of things I can accomplish today? Make it pretty simple. Just asking yourself those 3 empowering questions at the start of the day sets your mental state in the right way, and the rest of the day follows that theme. In the evening, the last moment before you, or the last few minutes before you nod off to sleep, give yourself a couple, 3 to 5 empowering statements about things you achieved for the day, so that when you fall asleep, the last things you're thinking about are positive things from the day, things that you accomplished. Okay, so that's morning empowering questions, evening empowering statements. Rule number 3, and you've got to do this for 10 days without missing a beat. The next 10 days, make certain that your entire focus in life is on solutions and not on problems. And the second you feel a possible challenge to this, you must focus on what the solution could be. And then you are to journal or use a journal to record these moments in your day. So it's a simple handwriting notes on a piece of paper, a journal. Do that for 10 consecutive days. So that's rule number 3. Rule number 4 is simply, if you do fall over or backslide, if you catch yourself indulging or dwelling on these unresourceful thoughts or feelings, don't beat yourself up, right? It's completely normal. That's the way you're used to thinking. So your brain will resist you trying to change your thought pattern. So don't beat yourself up. Just get back on the horse, Focus on those rules 1, 2, and 3 and keep going. However, if you do dwell or indulge on the unwanted thoughts for too long, or any measurable length of time, you must wait until the following morning and then start the 10 days over again from the beginning. So the goal of this is to get through 10 days without holding or dwelling on a negative thought. Now, it's hard, but it's incredibly powerful. And if you do this for 10 consecutive days, you have taken a huge leap forward in blueprinting your brain mind for life and business success. Now, you must keep starting it over until you've done the 10 consecutive days, right? I'll talk about this a lot more and detail it a lot more, all of these components in the short courses on the FBAA website, okay? So thank you very much. I hope that this has been helpful. I hope you take away some nuggets from this to take away into how you approach your life and business. Please feel free to reach out to me if you ever got any questions. Certainly go to the FBAA website and hunt down the courses when they're available. Thank you again, FBA. I've enjoyed the opportunity to speak, and I hope you have a wonderful day.
So first up, I'd like to introduce Cameron Garnham from Stripe Financial, who is going to be talking about short-term lending and the top 4 frequently asked questions that they receive. So Cam, over to you, mate.
Hello, legends. Thank you very much, Brett, and thank you for having me today. And just to carry on for 1 second from what you were just speaking about there, I've been lucky enough to do some stuff with a gentleman by the name of Dr. Phil Joints, and he's worked with the Brisbane Broncos and the Australian Olympic team and what have you. And he talks about the exact same things, Brett. The control the controllables is his big thing that he goes to. And if you don't think you'll be worried about it in 12 months' time, whatever the problem is that you have at present, if it still won't be a problem in 12 months' time, then don't waste any energy on it right now. And I think they're wonderful points just in life in general, not only business, around controlling what you actually have control over.
And I think you're right there, Cameron. In today's time, particularly in a world of lockdowns, we can only control what's in our small ecosystem of environments around us, and doing the right things and all those sort of stuff. So it was really pertinent, and I really encourage everybody, once we get that video from Ash, to really look at it and spend the extra 30 minutes and go through that. But Cam, over to you, mate.
Thanks, champion. Guys, thank you so much for having me, and I hope you're all staying as safe and as well as you possibly can be in the current environment. I know we're all feeling for you guys down there at present. Listen, I've only got 5 or 10 minutes, and I just want to have a quick chat through some short-term lending stuff. I've obviously met the vast majority of you guys over the last few years when we've been able to do the face-to-face stuff, and to Whitey and his team at the FBAA, I think we've been with you guys for 6 or 7 years now. So hopefully we'll be able to get back down and see you face-to-face sometime, well, probably next year now. Into our short-term lending stuff, guys, there's typically a few questions that people want to know around short-term lending. We're just going to quickly run through a couple of them today. The first one is, what is the critical information that you need from your clients? So short-term lending is a little bit different. We don't have a 15-page application form, or we don't need tax returns and financials. These are the 5 questions that I need you to ask your clients, which will work out for you whether your client is a short-term client or not. Now, it may not be a short-term client with Strive Financial. It may be someone with Finstro or someone with Prosper, depending on how they answer these questions. But the first one is always, how long do they need the money for? If they need the money for 3 years, then they're not a short-term loan option. And that's where clients get into trouble when they don't have really clear exit strategies on how they're going to pay the money back. So the most important question you can ever ask your client if they're looking at short-term funding is, how long do they need the money for? If they need it for 3 months or 6 months, well, then they're going to tick that box that, yep, it may be a short-term loan. The second question is, when are the funds needed by? There's always an urgency with short-term funding. If the client has 8 weeks, then you're likely going to be able to take them to a mainstream lender and be able to get them the money. But there will always be an urgency in the short-term lending. So it might be Wednesday and they need to pay wages by Friday afternoon. They need the money within a 48-hour period. Tick that box there. what are the funds going to be used for? Now, this is absolutely critical. With all of your short-term lending and business lending, it's got to be outside the consumer credit code. So it has to be for business or investment purpose. Now, that doesn't mean the security that they use has to be business security. The security can be a principal place of residence that is owned in their personal name and be residential property, that's fine, but it's where the money's going to be used. So if the money is going to be used to do renovations to a residential property owned in their personal name, then that's going to be a personal loan and we won't be able to help. But if they're using their principal place of residence as security and the money is to pay for wages or to purchase stock or what have you, it's where our loan funds are going, which will determine whether it's a business loan or not. How will they repay the loan? A lot of people say, Cam, you charge 2% a month, 3% a month. How can you do that without looking at financials and tax returns and making sure that they can afford it? At the end of the day, we're looking for an exit strategy. How are they going to be able to pay the money back in that 3-month period? Are they refinancing? Is their house on the market and they're selling it? Have they won a new contract that pays 30 days end of month, but they need that 60 days cash flow? We have to see a really clear exit strategy. And then lastly, what will be used as security? So with our loans, we do need security for all of our loans, whether it be a first mortgage or a second mortgage or PPSRs over cars or boats or what have you. Someone like Finstro, they won't need security. So those questions there will allow you to understand your client's situation and then where you may be able to fit them in their business lending. Moving on from there, the next question that I get a lot of the time is, how do you move so quickly? Like you say you can do it in 24 hours. Everyone says they can do it in 24 hours. But how can you actually do that? Is it just a marketing tool? And I can promise you through Strive, it's not just a marketing tool. We literally have the application, which is a 2-page application form that's submitted. You'll have a letter of offer, which is out to you within an hour of receiving that application. And from there, once we have the letter of offer back, the loan documents are done. We used to fly to meet with all of our clients. Obviously, with COVID, we can't do that now. So if they're in Southeast Queensland, I can still meet with them. If not, they go into our lawyer's office. They do a Zoom meeting just like this so I can explain the documents to them. They sign them and the money's in the account. Now, the reason we can do this is because we have our own in-house law firm, Strive Law, which is run by my little sister. And that allows us to turn the money around in the time frame that we can turn it around, because we don't outsource our documentation. We don't outsource our letters of offer. We don't outsource PEXA. We lodge all our own securities. Everything is actually done in-house. It's all our own in-house funds. It's our in-house lawyer. We're able to do everything all the way from woe to go on the loan in that period of time. One thing that is absolutely critical that a lot of people ask about is, I can get a lower interest rate somewhere else. Can you match it? The answer is no, we can't match it. But what I beg you to do is check the fees and charges in these loans, because it's not always about the interest rate in short-term lending. 90% of the time, there will be fees and charges in other loans, upfront fees and charges being establishment fees, application fees, desktop valuation fees, risk fees, monthly fees. It goes on and on. So I really do need you to look beyond the interest rate and work out what the total cost of the loan is going to be for the 3-month period, for instance. And here was just a comparison of one that we had where the interest rate on a competitor was 1.5% per month. We were 2% per month. But when you added in the 4.7% establishment fee and the $8,800 documentation fee, the total loan cost was $118,000 versus $109,450. So it was a substantial saving to the client, even though the interest rate was 0.5% per month extra. So it's really, really critical when you're playing in this space and you're navigating through this space with your client, that you look at the whole cost of the loan rather than just the interest rate of 1.5% per month versus 2% per month. Now, I'm running out of time quickly here. Listen, one of the ones we get all the time is, isn't short-term lending a rip-off? Listen, it can be. And that's why you have to be able to look really closely at the offers that you get. One piece of advice I'd give you is to definitely don't pay anything up front. But if people use short-term lending correctly, it can be very, very valuable to the client's business, especially when there's opportunities out there. At the moment, property prices are really good, and there's a fair bit of confidence around property prices. So there are opportunities in the market that people want to take advantage of quickly. And we sit in that space where we can help them do that. So listen, thank you so very much for your time again. I hope you're all staying safe and well. If you've ever got any questions, queries, or dramas, all our contact details are at the FBAA. Please always feel free to give me a bell, and I'd love to have a chat. Thanks so much, Brett.
Thanks, Cam. Always great to hear. Look, I always do love that last slide four. Yeah, I get told that all the time. Oh, short-term lending is a rip-off, but yeah, short-term lending really does have its place in the market. There are people who really do lead just some short-term financing, and this provides the opportunity for those businesses and clients of yours who are stuck, who have the capacity to make payments, who have the capacity to have funding, but are in a problematic period for 3 months of the year. I know there's times where I wish I could have used it, and I haven't, but it's something I probably should in my other businesses, and it really is worthwhile. So thanks, Cam, really appreciate it.
Thanks, champion.
So next, I'd like to introduce a really old friend of mine who I've known for a long, long time, Darren McLeod from Finstro, who's going to be talking today about prepare today and trade tomorrow. So Darren, over to you, my friend. Darren's there. Oh, there he is. I think you might be on mute, mate. Have we lost Darren? I think we might have lost Darren's voice there. Well, I think we know what we might do. We might skip forth to the next presenter and then come back to Darren if Darren's got some connection issues there, which is quite common in today's day with everybody.
No, I'm back.
Oh, you're back. There you are, Darren. All right, you're back.
Sorry about that all. Thanks, Brett, for the intro. I did everything except for unmute myself. So
good. Oh, there he is.
Oh, I'll use up a little bit of time. You've got a little bit up the sleeve at the moment, so it'll work out well.
We do indeed, mate. We do.
Perfect. Good morning, everyone, and thank you. Thank you for joining in. And look what Brett and Cam spoke about beforehand. It's it's all very pertinent stuff, and especially in these times when we need to be able to reach out to other people. One of the things that has really come to mind in recent times is when I'm talking to people is that they say that I don't really deal in the commercial or self-employed space. But I tend to think that most people underestimate what they can do. If you think about your current book that you have, it's a list of all your clients in your database, what generally happens is that 40% of your current book would be inclusive of self-employed or business clients. And quite often they're hugely untapped for anything that you want to do. So what I'm about to show you and what Cam from Strive and even Ben from On Deck later on will demonstrate quick and easy ways that you can take that next step into your clients' businesses and help them. And there's varying degrees. You've got Strive who are really supportive and well worked in the asset side of things, and Ben and myself in the cash flow area, and we have probably different styles of doing things. And let's see if we get the next slide. Beautiful. Finstro is proud to hold several varying payment solutions. We recognise that small businesses or the self-employed have long been underserved, whereby approximately 50% do not get the support that they truly deserve. That support is generally from the major banks or major entities. Our payment solutions ensure that we're truly accessible for businesses by offering both mobile and cash management systems with flexible repayment options with no need for any asset backing of property. So good news there, you don't need property. Established businesses, whether it be wholesale, food services, or retail industries, it has been identified that approximately 25% of these business owners have said that they probably can meet their financial commitments currently, yet and even potentially into 2022. Although 48% of businesses have stated that affordability of additional staff is a factor which is affecting their cash reserves, and any potential growth out of lockdowns. We do know that growth in sole trader numbers are continuing, yet are they adequately prepared? Are they adequately set up? Whether it's a new startup or an existing business, meeting commitments can be an issue during these times that we are experiencing. Whether it's arranging extended terms or supporting a lack of cash on hand or cash flow, they're even placing personal liability at risk. Our challenge here is how can we best help our businesses and self-employed clients? So this is the part where we get to where you start thinking about your customers and say, okay, don't normally play in the SME or commercial space, but how can I help them? What can I do to get in there and help them? So what we do, we think, well, you do a health check for your normal residential mortgage-backed loans, but from your customer book, as I stated, we know that approximately 40% of it is made up of self-employed or business customers. Let's create an action plan. Firstly, review your self-employed business clients for any unsecured business lending. From there, you identify who may still have 4 to 6 months outstanding on their commitments. So they still might have $1,000 a month still payable over 6 months. That's the type of thing we're looking for. You then discuss with your client the benefit of reducing this monthly commitment by extending terms. By extending the terms, this will place less stress on their already strained cash resources, and additionally give them a bit of peace of mind and an opportunity to regain control as they look to trade themselves into the future. Another big thing is the education side. Many people see debt as a bad thing, but debt is a very useful tool for any business, but it must be used right. Let's see how we can help here at Finstro. Let's look at a business who has a monthly average turnover of $10,000. Based on our 1.5 times metric, we can then approve up to a $15,000 facility limit. Under this facility limit, we have 4 different options, all under this evergreen approved facility limit. Once approved, there is no need to reapply when they use it and repay it. The facility remains ready for use with no annual reviews or annual fees or monthly fees. Across these options, a business can free up cash on hand, or as I like to say, cash in pocket. By way of funding a supplier invoice, so you're looking to buy goods, you get the choice of either funding that full invoice or part thereof. So the client can choose to pay 50% out of their own pocket and fund the other 50% or get the whole 100% funded. This is instead of using their own cash on hand by doing up to 100% of it. And then they get up to 6 months to repay it. If they pay it out within that 6-month period, there is no penalties. So realistically, we could fund it 100% invoice, the client gets some money in and they pay it completely in the 3-month period, no problems, no penalties, all good. Perhaps even for money owed or debtors. If a client has a debtor who offered 30-day terms, quite often they're waiting up to 45 days for payment. So instead of waiting for that 30 or 45 days for payment, why not get 80% of it up front, 80% of the invoice, and get those funds into your pocket today or back into your cash flow. We can also provide a simple cash injection to make a slightly larger equipment purchase, which will enable you to spread the repayments across 12 months. So under the cash injection, you pull out back on the 10 grand limit, we've got a 10 grand turnover, we've got a 15 grand limit. You want to pull out 5, 10 grand to buy something, you can then pay that back over 12 months, again, without taking any security over that item that you're purchasing because you're using the cash out of our facility. If we go back to that scenario and we look at how we can help a small business to find their feet now and be prepared to trade again. We're all going through the lockdown, especially here in Melbourne and Sydney, Brisbane to a point where just so many small businesses are locked down. So they have to maintain their commitments, yet they want to be prepared to trade again. So under our refinance option, we can look at that monthly turnover of 10,000 that I mentioned, get the approved limit to 15, and then from that monthly turnover of 10,000, we can use up to 8,000 or 80% of the monthly turnover for refinance. So if we take that example I used of $1,000 a month with 6 months to run, what we can do is refinance at $6,000, spread it out over 12 months, which helps their monthly commitment from $1,000 to $500 and spreading the payments out to 12 months. This is now making this commitment more manageable and certainly less stressful and giving back that peace of mind that I have mentioned. Perhaps we need to dig deeper. For those who were joining yesterday and we recall the content from Ascendo Financial, they spoke about getting fully involved with your customers to understand what they need now and moving forward to greater cash flexibility. They spoke about finding cash that is locked away within a business's own supplier or debtor payments. These are some of the alternative points that you need to consider when you're digging deeper with your clients to understand where they're at and what they want to do. Do they just want to change their terms on their debtor invoicing, or perhaps obtain new terms on their supplier invoicing? Fistro, all our policies are designed to help any business across their payment solutions. Here's a quick little summary there across our 1.5 times metric being 150% of monthly turnover. We can go cash up to 100% of the turnover. Again, on that example, if it was 10,000 monthly turnover, the facility limit's 15, but they can access up to 10 under cash. We certainly like to be able to give those flexible repayment terms between 3, 6 and 12 months with no early repayment penalties, and certainly refinance a competitor debt, sorry Ben, to a more suitable period of time. Don't worry Ben, I'll target other SMEs. What we also have is a trade now, pay later, or a payment or card payment option. This is a great way for any business who wish to make payments on the go. Some may say I already hold a payment card or a credit card. True. But customers mix their personal and business debts or their liabilities, and this does open them up to potential issues. These issues can create confusion between personal and business expenses, which can affect living expense calculations or create a higher credit card limit than personally needed to repay and cover both personal and business expenses or purchases. In due course, this can affect mortgage-backed applications across both serviceability and borrowing capacity, or perhaps even personal credit score should repayment history falter. I think we've all faced this, whereby when doing a mortgage-backed or an asset-backed loan, you do have issues with credit card limits and potentially any living allowance expenses through those transactions. By separating, you reduce the personal liability risk, and not to mention the benefit across any normal home or investment property loan application. Through the payment card solution, you get to choose. You make a repayment on any purchase that you've just made. You select 3 to 6 months as your repayment or installment plan. During the course of the period, you can edit your repayments to manage them for your next bill, or you can even reschedule it to suit your cash flow. With the flexibility to manage these repayments or even reschedule, it's a great way to have a payment card option that works for you all in the palm of your hand. Perhaps it can even be a great way to pay any membership fees. Brett mentioned your dues for FBAA. Depending on the amount, I don't know, but perhaps you can put them on your card and extend those repayments over 3 months, which will help your own personal training membership cost or expense. And even if you look to do extended training through AAMC or other like-minded places, you can pay that amount up front and spread the repayment over that 3 to 6 month period. We have, well, as I would say, but wait, there's more. I'll throw in some steak knives. We have a perfect add-on solution. We can auto-approve a $5,000 limit on the payment card, which will enable your business customers assist with any tap-and-go payments, unexpected expenses, or perhaps use it as a fuel card. People tend to forget about fuel cards. Yes, you can get a fuel card through Shell or MotoPass, but then you're a little bit restricted with a Shell card because you can't use other service stations, and MotoPass is not widely accepted these days. So by putting all your fuel costs for your business on one place, it makes it easily to manage, and also your accountant will love you. This add-on solution is available even if they decide that they want a higher limit or if they have a competitor loan. As a general rule in the SME space, especially here at Finstro, we won't go second behind and on deck if they have a GSA already registered. But under the payment card solution, we will go second behind them up to $25,000. If your client wishes to get a higher limit than $5,000, which is, as I said, auto-approved, we can look to go higher up to $25,000, but it will be subject to a full assessment. To access this card, you simply give us the client's name, mobile and email address. Let us know that they've had some payments done, and for your efforts, we'll pay you 3.3%, including GST, on the activated limit all for a quick email and some contact details. With our minimal criteria and quick turnarounds, what could be easier? Simply discuss and refer your client to myself and get the ball rolling. As you can see, the criteria is quite simple. 6 months trading, 6 months ABN and registered for GST, and a minimum per annum turnover of 75,000, which breaks down to 6,250 a month. And let's say 6,000 a month, which is quite achievable for any small business. Here at Finstro, we have a range of payment solutions which cover across multiple segments. These segments cross from your local self-employed or small business operator right through the supply chain of wholesale and distributors to larger corporate enterprises. What this slide gives you a picture of is that speak to your accountants, your accountant referral partners. Speak to them, and they might have bigger, larger customers whom they haven't referred to you, whereby we can help them through their larger supplier chain or even enterprise systems and set up their clients for a better way forward. Of course, there's always commissions on these models as well. Probably haven't gone over time, or if I have, it's because we've got a little bit of extra time up our sleeve, and I thank you for your time. If you have any questions or scenarios, please yell out now. I think we've got time to field a couple, Brett. But if you wish to reach out for any questions or scenarios, my contact details are on the slide currently. Thank you.
Thanks, Danny. I do have one question. It's probably going to be pertinent to most of the SME providers. It said that clean credit's required. I get this question a few times from members. On an SME loan, is the clean credit requirement a requirement of the directors of the business or of the business itself?
Basically, what we can do is we like to see a clean on both, but we will go down to a low credit score of around 450, 500 for the business, and under the personal directors, if they've got your normal utilities or things like that, is not our issue. So if they're all paid and up to about $1,000, yeah, not a major issue there.
Okay, cool. Yeah, because it's a common question I get about SME lending is you might have a small business partnership that one of the directors or one of the partners has got some blemishes in their personal world, but nothing in their business world, and it sometimes affects their SME ability to get their financing. So thanks for that, mate.
No problems.
All right. Speaking of clean credit, I'd like to now introduce Mary Dagras from Credit Fix Solutions, who will be outlining credit reporting top tips and what you need to know. I'm not a big fan of CCR, but it is a world that we're in today, Mary. So over to you.
Thank you. Thanks, Brett. I'm just going to share my screen. Can we see that?
We can indeed, yes.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me. Hope you're all well and staying safe. For those who don't know me, my name is Mary Dagras, and I'm the BDM for Credit Fix Solutions, taking care of Melbourne and Vic. Just a quick disclaimer, everyone. This is information purposes only, not to be used as legal advice. We do have Credit Fix lawyers attached to our company. So for those who need advice on credit reporting or even legislation, please reach out. What we're seeing in 2021, we're seeing a big number of buy now, pay later inquiries on credit reports. Now, this is a thorn on my side because it's readily available to everyone. I recently saw that you can even purchase a pizza with it, so go figure. However, from a bank's point of view, buy now, pay later inquiries can be deemed as a cash flow issue. So, we've all got a lot of time on our hands at this point in time. People jump on the internet and just make inquiries. Even though they don't go ahead with the application, we are seeing that 70 points can be deducted from a credit file, like from the credit score. So for those brokers out there, if they're seeing people, and reading the reports, maybe just give them an education piece around the buy now, pay later schemes. We can remove those type of inquiries from the credit report. However, if they do have the accounts with these kind of facilities, we can't remove them. So keep that in mind. By removing these kind of inquiries as well, it automatically adds another 70 points back to the score. So just keep that in mind. We're seeing a big impact. I mean, through COVID and hardship, the repayment history information is on the credit report, and it remains on the report for 24 months. So even though the customer can go ahead and close the account, the information stays on there for 24 months. This is an interesting one. A lot of you are probably using Equifax, but in fact, there's 3 reporting agencies that we use. One is Equifax, the other one is Olympian, who used to be Dun & Bradstreet, and there's the third one called Experian. Now, I've come across cases where one report is clean, and then, you know, you might submit an application to the bank. It might be auto declined or declined. And that's because banks are also ordering the 3 reports across all bodies. So keep that in mind. If you come across red flags with a customer, I would highly suggest that you order all 3 reports, because they can differ. The information is different from all 3. Complex credit repair scenarios. We're coming across interesting scenarios where a financial institution might list a default, and then there's also a judgment listed on there. So they can do both, and I have come across them. There's one particular bank, don't know whether I should name them, but I will. ANZ can list a default, and they've also listed a judgment. So we are coming across more complex scenarios. Just reach out. I'm here to help you. If you don't understand anything on a credit report, just reach out. These are my details, nice and short this time. I'm doing this nice and short. So these are my details. Reach out if you need anything. And yeah, thank you for listening.
Perfect, Mary. Thank you so very much. One of the things I get your comment on is CCR. They say that it has the old way of negative reporting. You know, if you missed a payment, you got a bad strike. The current format, and particularly in the SME world with a lot of self-employed people, the more solutions, the more finance, the more credit cards. You know, a lot of businesses are built on personal credit cards and whatnot.
Absolutely.
Under CCR, obviously, the more debt and the more facilities, and the lower your credit score goes. How are you finding those sort of scenarios with people borrowing money? Because I know for me personally, I have an exceptionally poor CCR because of the number of directorships, credit accounts that I've had over the years. A number of investment properties, mortgages, family, all those sorts of things. So how do you get around those sort of things where you may have one instance where you might, somebody who's very, very credit worthy, but under CCR, because of that, they have a low credit fix, and then they have one missed payment on something, and then that throws their entire credit score out of whack, and it stops them from being able to borrow.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks. I'm coming across, there's more education available regarding CCR reporting. A lot of people are aware that, you know, all their liabilities are listed on the report, but, you know, I do come across scenarios where, you know, they've got the cash, but, you know, through negligence or, you know, a bit of neglect, they don't make payments on time. So we have got the power to reverse repayment history information on a CCR. However, it's case by case, and it depends what happened behind the scenes. You know, sometimes it's legitimate, sometimes it's, you know, someone losing their job, or it's medical, or something traumatic has happened in their life, and we can have a look at those cases and see if we can reverse them.
Okay. So folks, if you've got any of those sort of cases where there is something minor, then reach out to Mary and the team at Credit Fix. I'm sure they'll
absolutely. Just reach out, guys. You might think that might be, you know, it might be black and white from your end, but because we do this day in, day out, there might be something that, you know, we can offer to, you know, come up with a solution. Yeah,
perfect. Thank you very much, Mary. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
So next up, I'd like to welcome Ben Starkey from OnDeck. He is going to join us to give us a general update on where OnDeck is at the moment. Ben, over to you, my friend.
Yeah, thanks for that, Brett. I'll just bring up my screen.
I always love those big earphones that you've got on, mate. It's like you're in a DJ booth ready to spin some tracks or something. It's
yeah,
great.
I know. No, they're really good, really comfy, and I think the sounds pretty good too, so can't complain. All right. Okay, can everyone see that? Good morning, everyone. Thanks again for that, Brett. My name's Ben. I'm the BDM here at On Deck. If we haven't met before, and as Brett said, I'm just going to give a quick update on a couple of our products and some recent scenarios as well, just to help with your conversations with your small business clients. So here's a bit on our story. So On Deck was founded in the US just over 15 years ago, and then we launched in Australia 6 years ago. So today we've lended over 13 billion to more than 110 small businesses across the US, Canada, and Australia. So here's our first product. So our unsecured business loan or term loan. So as you can see there, I've listed the main features and the qualifying criteria on the right there. So the main features, so the loans range anywhere between 10,000 to 250,000 in terms between 6 and 24 months. The main qualifying questions that we ask from our brokers and our customers up front is there 12 months in business? As Darren said earlier, a clean credit score, it's not black and white. So we have numerous ones where it might have a credit score around 400, but it's a paid default from 2018 that's dragging the score down. If we can get some evidence on the default being paid, then generally, we can get around that with consistent cash flow. So as you can see, 100,000 is the minimum annual revenue. And then for our application, similar to as Cam was saying earlier, all our application is it's a one-page application form, or on the alternate, we can actually just accept the name and number for the client, and we can do an application over the phone. Understand a lot of our brokers are extremely busy on the residential side of things, which is going gangbusters at the moment. So we can take that time away from you, and you still get paid the full commission at the end of the day. And then for our assessment, we just need 6 months of bank statements, and we determine the customer's serviceability, what rate they'll get, what term they're offered, just based on the most recent cash flow. Here's an exciting one. So our Lightning loans, which is a product we've launched over at the start of this year. So with the Lightning loans, so the loan amount is a little bit less, so between 10,000 and 100,000. What we've aimed to do here is basically automate the approval process. So with the term loan, it has to go through the credit analyst stage and then through to an underwriter who makes the final decision. With our Lightning loans, basically it'll just go through, we submit the deal, it'll go through the credit analyst, and if it meets a few checks, we'll just go straight into approval. So I've actually had a deal for 100K approved in 45 minutes. And that was just last week. So we're at the moment, we're around 60% of our applications are getting approved on Lightning loans, with the aim to move to around 80% towards the end of the year. It's, as you can see, it's the same qualifying criteria, same documents required, and all our loans are completely unsecured. So we won't place a GSA or a caveat. It's just a director's guarantee. So these are just some typical use of funds that we do see. For example, building a new website, purchasing stock, tools, machinery, equipment. I'd say stock's probably one of my favorite ones, especially now coming into the Christmas period. People are able to get stock. If you buy stock, like a bulk of stock up front, you generally get a discount, which will ultimately outweigh the interest component of the loan. So it's really beneficial for the customer. So as I said, here's a couple case studies to go over from the last few weeks. So here's an accountant. They restructured from a sole trader to a company. So as I said earlier, 12 months in business. So this customer here was trading as a sole trader for around 8 years. 6 months ago, they changed to a company structure. We could verify just via ABN lookup that it was the same business trading. So we were able to prove that they've been around for longer than 12 months. So again, it's not a black and white approach, saying the company ABN's only been around for 6 months. We won't do the deal. We will look into these things. This one had a really strong credit file, annual revenue just under 400K. They were looking for 55 over 24 months, and we were able to approve them for 70,000 over 24 months in 2.5 hours. As one of the Lightning loans. So the key takeaway there is the approval actually equals around 215% of the monthly turnover. So we are lending really high based on what the current turnover is. Commission paid across all our loans, 4% plus GST. So another case study here for a mechanic. We are seeing a lot of inquiries for mechanics lately, given the lockdowns everywhere, and they seem to be really busy, and obviously one of the businesses that are able to trade. So this one was really healthy time business, so 20 years, strong credit file. Again here, the key takeaway would be the approval amount versus the monthly turnover. So this one, it was 310%. As I said, mechanics are really busy, so they were looking to get an extra employee. All we needed on the application, and in terms of security, was just one director to sign off, and just their director's guarantee on the loan. Finally, another case study for a takeaway restaurant. They were looking to open a second restaurant. This one here, approved in 2 hours for 150K over 24 months. So this one wasn't one of our lightning loans because it was above 100,000. But given the strength of the business, credit file just above 500, good cash flow, they were able to be approved in 2 hours for 150,000 and funded that same day. So we send all our documents via DocuSign. So once we do get an approval, from approval to funded, if the customer is and the broker is happy with what we've come back with, we can get it approved and funded within a few hours, which is awesome. As you can see, no AllPAP or GSA required there. So we do have a bit of a COVID-19 recovery hub for all our small businesses and our brokers. Key one here is what we can actually do is generate a marketing email for our brokers to send out to your clients, and just touch base, see how they're traveling. Obviously, lots of businesses are impacted significantly in a not so good way. Some have been able to adapt and actually improve their business, but these resources, incredible. As you can see on the top of that screenshot there, Cam Pullman, our CEO, has written a number of articles on small business recovery. Okay, so why partner with us? This is just for our broker team. So we're an extension of your team. So as I said earlier, regarding the sort of tick and flick, sending us the customer's contact details, we can work on your behalf to work with the client. At the end of the day, you still get it's your client and you still get that same commission. What we do like to do is try and vet and pre-screen a deal as much as we can up front. So the key thing we ask for is those qualifying questions, as well as getting the bank statements. We have a look over the statements and let you know where an approval might sit. And there's my details. I'm sure it'll be on the FBAA website. Please feel free to reach out if you have any scenarios or any questions about how we can help your small business clients.
Thanks a lot for that, Ben. Look, it's great. It seems a really good common theme amongst all of our SME sponsors is that I don't like to use the word easy when it comes to finance, but it certainly is not as difficult as it's once sort of feared to be. It used to be traditionally you wanted to finance for a business, it was, oh my God, no, the world's falling in. Whereas now it seems a lot easier, a lot quicker. So for all of you guys listening in, I really encourage you to not turn away the customers who are looking hard for the SME. Think, oh, okay, I can't get you 50 grand for short term. I can't get you assistance for you to raise money, or I can't get you some invoicing finance. There is so much opportunity there for our members, and it's great, Ben, that on deck's there to help. I really like the idea of that COVID screen. So I think you should really promote the hell out of that, because there is such a disinformation out there around what is available to businesses, and businesses not knowing what government grants they're entitled to, and what requirements they need to do to follow in and adhere, and what is available to assist SMEs in the market to get through these tough times. Because I'd imagine, Ben, a lot of your customers in those smaller areas outside of the essential services, your electricians and that, but you looked at that takeaway restaurant, they would be suffering in times like today, in times like this. So reach out, everybody, to the right people, and Ben, look, really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Brett.
All right, so next I want to introduce, where are we? The last session today before we hear from our esteemed leader is that I want to introduce Kaitlyn Stewart from Affordable Staff. She's here to talk to you about resource cost and capacity versus role output activity. Close to my heart here, Kaitlyn. Many years ago, I had an outsourced business way before outsourcing was fashionable today. So I really appreciate you coming and joining us again, and over to you.
Fantastic. Thanks, Brett. Yeah, fashionable, I think That's definitely the case. We are extremely busy at the moment here at Affordable Staff. So once I share my screen, fantastic. Alrighty, cool. So my name is Kaitlyn Stewart, for those of you that don't know me, and I am the National Business Development Manager for the financial sector of Affordable Staff. So at Affordable Staff, we provide outsourced staff for business efficiency. We've been outsourcing and building effective team structures for more than 15 years. For this session, I'll be focusing on the cost of different resources typically seen in a broker business and where activities should be delegated to better scale the business. So straight off the bat, I'm actually going to jump into costing. So in taking a big picture view, it's costly to a business to have more expensive resources bogged down with admin activities, especially when those activities don't have a return on investment attached. So this table is a base example of resource cost over a 12-month period and outlines the basic in-house support resource and an outsourced admin resource. Now, this is just a basic outline of financial costs. Not included here in the local in-house staff column is the additional costs of local staff employment, such as annual leave taken or potential internal management and other costs that may be required. So this definitely paints a very big picture about the affordability of outsourcing, and especially with us, we obviously looking at about half the cost of a local admin, and that's just on a junior salary. I'm hearing stories at the moment that some admin are asking for salaries much, much higher than the one that I've done that working out on there. So when considering additional resources, it's important to identify which resource is handling which activity in your business, including yourself as broker. So you should look to separate the admin functions and categorize which role is most appropriate to handle them. Are the admin tasks being done by a key local person, or could they be done by a less expensive resource? These activities would be delegated first to an outsourced admin. Just a quick note on job descriptions. They're definitely recommended to create or restructure when necessary. If they're not already in place for admins, this should be your first point of call. A basic structure includes KPIs and an outline of the activities required to meet each KPI successfully. If job descriptions aren't in place, we recommend starting with workflow map and building the JD from there. Job descriptions and workflow mapping are a key foundation when looking to scale. Affordable Staff provide basic job description templates for admin levels 1 and 2, as standard with all of our VA placements. When outlining the delegation of admin activities, you should consider the following. The outsourced admin role should mainly handle pure admin activity, low value, time consuming activities. The local support role should mainly handle higher level admin and role appropriate ROI activity. And this then enables you, the broker, to focus on business development and scale activities or return on investment, depending on your business setup. With the above in mind, which activities could be allocated or delegated away from a broker's plate, or which could be delegated from a local admin's plate? Having a look at delegating down. So delegating down for more effective task assignment for activities in a role is important. So to delegate admin cost efficiently, delegate the base admin functions in your workflow to an outsourced or low cost based admin. We found this to be simple and cost effective, and it's a great starting point for generating more capacity on multiple levels. This slide shows some examples of common loan admin that can be delegated down very quickly to an outsourced admin. These tasks focus on loan processing admin activities. However, it's important to remember that an Affordable Staff virtual assistant is not just a loan processor. They can handle many other low value admin tasks as well, which leads me to this slide. Here are some additional examples of activities that an outsourced admin can focus on, which creates capacity for the higher cost-based resource roles. So post-settlement activities is a big one, especially compliance reviews, annual reviews, rate reviews, social media, virtual receptionists, and just the basics, following up banks, sitting on hold for hours on end so that you don't have to. Really fantastic ways of utilising an outsourced admin. Just a really quick slide, I guess, on delegating to your in-house or local staff, really focusing on those return on investment activities. So taking the low value task away from them and having them focus on building the business better for you. So some tasks that a local admin person could focus on that are ROI could include retention, qualifying your leads, obviously some parabroker functions, post-settlement and additional service sales. So insurances, referrals to accountants, lawyers, etc., and 12-month reviews as well. So in summary, creating more capacity in individual roles has an overarching effect, creating more freedom, more choice, and more ability to scale. If you would like to learn more about how affordable staff works, we have dedicated team leaders, dedicated account managers locally, myself. We have in-house training, support, and a team of close to 400 now working from our office in the Philippines. So it's a pretty big operation. If you'd like to learn more, there's my contact details. You can also jump onto our website as well too. There's some really good case studies with some of our existing clients as well too. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Kaitlyn. Really appreciate it. I really like the idea of having somebody sit on a phone for me on hold for the bank, because I reckon if I asked all of our members here today what their number one bugbear would be sitting on hold on the phone for a bank to get a status update. I reckon that alone is worth gold. So thanks a lot for that, Kaitlyn. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you.
So next, I would like to introduce a man who doesn't need an introduction, but I'll have to do it anyway because that's what the run sheet says, is our esteemed Managing Director, Peter White, who's going to talk to us on 2021, The New World. Over to you, boss.
Thanks, Brett. And appreciate the little intro there. And I just want to thank you, Brett, and also echo your comments in regards to lockdown and the stress everybody's under in Melbourne and New South Wales through this lockdown and COVID period, or the extended period. It's tough for everyone, and we really feel for you. Make sure you join us for our You OK Day next week. And also remember, we have our confidential counselling program. So if you need help, we have a 1-800 number you can ring, and Assured, who are professional counsellors, will look after you in complete confidence. So don't hesitate to use that. It's open to all FBAA members and your family. It's there for you. And so thanks, and look after yourselves. Unfortunately, numbers are rising. We see just now that New South Wales numbers are up in the high 1200s and 7 deaths. So, you know, let's not be too casual with this thing, because if you are, the bastard will kill you. And that's just not good. So look after yourselves and keep an eye on what's going on. And so as hard as it is, and as challenging as it can be, your premiers are trying to look after you as best as possible. They don't always get it right, neither do we, but they're trying, I guess. So yeah, is what it is. Let's move on. And Brett, hang around in the background for me, buddy, because I'm going to change things up just a little bit through my normal presentation, and I'm going to open it for comments earlier on, but you may have some questions as we go, because you're a long-term and a highly experienced person within our industry and very, very respected. And I'm sure I'm going to say some things that you'll go, oi, Whitey, tell me more about this. And if anybody else has any questions, put them in the chat box and Mariah will flick them through to me. So now I'm going to do something that most men can't do, and that's multitask. So I'm going to share my screen with you, and we'll get into the presentation from there. All righty, you should be seeing that, and we should be good to go. So I want to open with this. Is a little saying, that's my new little opening saying, if you like. Always remember that your present situation is not your final destination. The best is yet to come. And we know in these times how challenging things can be, and we feel like, you know, when does this thing stop? When can I get off the bus? It's not your final destination. The best is yet to come. And not putting a marker on this, Brett and I have been around the game for probably more than a couple of decades somewhere. And we've seen some hard times. We've been through some recessions, and we've been through some really tough gigs that we've been through in this industry. But it will come good. It always does. It will. And keep focused on that. But what I want to do is just tell you a little bit about what's lying ahead from a regulatory point of view, not to bore you with it, but hopefully just so you can get some framing and understanding as to what's going on and what certain things look like, what we're involved in. And again, this is when feel free to ask questions through the chat box. I am going to change the order of my conversation a little bit because I want to focus on a couple of things that have transpired over the last 2 weeks, and you're going to be some of the first to know all about it. So what I want to talk about to start with is the responsible lending obligation to repeal and the extension of the best interest duty that's been put before the House. I think it's had its third reading by the Federal Treasurer, Josh Frydenberg, and then we've heard nothing. Right? So I was fortunate 2 weeks ago now, 2 weeks and 1 day, to be on a Zoom call with Josh Frydenberg, our Federal Treasurer, and I did ask him the question is, so where are we at with responsible lending obligation to repeal? I hate the word repeal. It tends to suggest we're getting rid of it. We're actually not. Responsible lending has been here before ASIC came around. And for those of you who've been in the game long enough, before ASIC created RG 209 on responsible lending obligations, we always had, and we still do today, mind you, a checklist or a set of parameters that lenders said, you need to do this, 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 this. This is the debt service ratio. This is the LVR. This is that. This is what you've got to comply to. That was them meeting their responsible lending obligations as governed by APRA. It's always been here. That's not going away. That's not what the conversation is. It's about moving ASIC out of the mix. Why? Because ASIC has been constantly overreaching, and it's very problematic. And it's not just this areas that they've been overreaching with their obligations, because back in 2013, the regulatory guide, RG 209, as put out by ASIC, was around 35 pages. Today, it's over 100 pages. Right? It's blown right out of proportion. And ASIC has shown they've got a terrible habit of doing these sort of things. And it's reflected in the best interest duty. It's reflected in the extension of bid. It's reflected in responsible lending. It's reflected in DDO, CDR. I can go on and on and on. So I've just finished putting a 9-page paper, which is actually a briefing paper, but 9 pages of briefing to a senior minister within the Treasurer's team that is going to start and tackle this in addition to the work we've been doing directly with the Treasurer, the Treasurer's Chief of Staff, and what they call the DPMC, the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet. So we've been working with all of those people, and now we're taking it yet to another step. But coming back to RLOs, RLOs, the responsible lending repeal, and the extension of the best interest duty to finance brokers are shackled together in their conversation to get through Parliament. So they're caught together. This is why if one stops, the other stops as well. And the extension to bid was about bringing the finance brokers under a best interest duty, not just mortgage brokers, okay? Because unfortunately, the idiots in Treasury decided that they were going to redefine what a broker was, because we are all finance brokers. That's why we are the Finance Brokers Association since 2003 and 1993, and have never changed our name. Right? This is who we are, because our industry is finance broking. Unfortunately, we now have 2 classes. There's actually more than that, because it takes you down other rabbit holes as well. But we have mortgage brokers, we have finance brokers, we also have commercial brokers and so on, but they're not captured by this style of legislation, which is consumer facing. So the extension of bid was to put the same obligation that mortgage brokers now have from 1 January this year onto finance brokers. And finance brokers are basically consumer asset brokers. And for the sake of generalisation, apologies for generalisations, let's call them people that do car loans, right? Consumer car loans, as a simple example. So I asked Josh 2 weeks ago, I said, mate, so where are we at with the responsible lending repeal and the extension of the best interest duty? I probably had 2 minutes of dancing. It was a pretty good jig, you know, he's getting down there, he's going this way and that way. There was no answer. He wouldn't answer it, which is an instant red flag to me. I've been doing this since 2008, and I can read the signs pretty clearly as to what's going on. So I said, okay, I know that's hard. And from my point of view, I know the opposition, the consumer advocates are giving you ruddy hell over it, and they're struggling to get it through. But do you think, well, I said to Josh, I said, do you think we'll get something through before Christmas? And the dance was on again, you know, and it was going everywhere. No answer, which instantly says to me it ain't happening. All right? It's not happening, not at this stage anyhow. And if it does, it's a long, arduous journey that will have that many changes to it. It won't look like anything that we know today. So when you're thinking about what's happening with responsible lending repeal, what's happening with extension of best interest duty today and before Christmas, nothing. Right? Will it happen next year? I don't know. Will it happen at all? Don't know. Chances are probably leveraged in the higher percentage, it won't happen. Or if it does, it won't look like anything we know today. The blocks for it are just off the deep end. Now, this creates ongoing problems for us, right? And this is going to play out in the next pieces that I want to talk about. Because yesterday, I had a long conversation with Treasury and actually the Executive Director in charge of these areas that are impacting mortgage brokers in particular. But the conversation was focused on design and distribution obligations, DDOs. A lot of people haven't heard about it. It's really a lender problem, but it's a broker problem because we fit in the D bit, the distribution, and it's all about making sure products fit for purpose. Now, there was some recent news about this with people saying, hey, look, we've fought a battle and the obligation on brokers isn't going to be, well, basically nothing was the way I word it. Unfortunately, that is completely incorrect. The changes, and actually that word's incorrect too. It was identified that things were going to be amended. Nothing's being amended. Everything has been secured in law with design and distribution obligations. That ain't going to be changed. What Treasury is looking to do is to try, before 1 October when this starts, is make some clarifications. And those clarifications is, do brokers have to fulfill the obligation under design distribution obligations, which basically means every time you do a loan or every time you offer a product, a consumer product to a borrower, you have to ensure that the product is fit for purpose, right? Now, there's plenty of debate that says the best interest duty does that. If I tick all the boxes on best interest duty, I tick the box on the product being fit for purpose. But from a regulatory and legal point of view, that's actually not correct. The two are not same. And I can meet a best interest duty with not necessarily meeting a target market determination for fit for purpose of a product. Long way to say fit for purpose, sorry, right? So it doesn't play out as same. The risk of this, and you'll all be aware, as a broker, the maximum fine for a breach of laws for us is $1 million, $1,050,000, right? That's the maximum fine. And for a lot of us, it sent us to the wall pretty quick. So the concern is we don't want to be caught breaching the design and distribution obligations. And the part that Treasury is looking at is saying, look, mortgage brokers are kind of similar to financial planners. And I get really scared when that conversation happens, because if we start that, the rabbit hole turns all of us coming under AFSLs, which brings us under FAFA obligation, which means no more commission, right? Fee for service. That's what FAFA is all about. So we never want to go down that rabbit hole. But they've said, well, under the Corporations Act, the definition of personal advice kind of exempts the planners from this obligation because they have this best interest duties. And thinking along those lines, and mortgage brokers now have a best interest duty. It's a fiduciary duty, and we're sort of comfortable that we may be able to relax the rules a little bit or be a little bit clearer on what we're saying, because they ain't changing anything. So what they're saying is that brokers would still need to keep records on DDO and making sure products fit for purpose, and they still need to report. Now, you know, the aggregators are working out the reporting piece, but you need to report whether it's a 0 incidents or there is multiple incidents where the product supposedly was fit for purpose, but it wasn't. Now, all this gets very confusing because unless you see a target market determination to understand whether a product's fit for purpose, you don't know. You assume it is. I mean, what's the target market determination for a credit card? Anyone with a heartbeat? What is it for us a home loan? What's that look like?
Isn't that then the debate? But Peter,
Right.
Isn't that then the debate is that who makes the decision what's best fit for purpose for the customer, us as a finance broker or the customer themselves who wants that product? Like the old saying is never underestimate a person's ability to get something that they actually want.
Yeah, correct. The actual obligation sits with the broker, right? This is the way the law is written to ensure the product is fit for purpose. based on the due diligence undertaken with the broker and the client to ensure that we put their interest first under a best interest duty. Right? It's as clear as mud. Let me give you the tip.
Yeah, I agree.
But you know what Treasury is saying is that you still got to do those two things. So you still got to report and you still got to keep records. You can't do either without knowing what a target market determination is. And what's more, because of what's happened with the introduction of the best interest duty, some of the issues that are happening from the extension of bid with finance brokers still not caught by the bid as it is and potentially should be under the extension, but likely won't be because it's not likely going to happen. When you come to DDOs, if a mortgage broker only has to do those two things, so report and keep records, what it's saying is that, Treasury is saying is that the inference being is that if a mortgage broker gives a product to a client that may not fit the target market determination, so based on the target market determination, it may not be quite fit for purpose. Don't know what that means, neither does Treasury in actual fact, is an example of that. But they're saying that's okay. It doesn't have to meet the target market determination. And my first point to them is, well, what about ASIC? I mean, they're just going to belt us with that because when they do an audit on a broker's file, they see your best interest duty, they see nothing on the target market determination and fit for purpose statement. They're going to hammer us. And they said, no, we've spoken to ASIC, they're all good. I said, great. Have you spoken to AFCA? No. And they're pretty scared about that thought, let me tell you. So AFCA hasn't been spoken to because that's where another problem will occur is the method of which AFCA runs is on a strict rule of law, right? Because they're solicitors that run it. That's what an ombudsman is. An ombudsman's a solicitor, right? So there's a problem with that, with the DDOs, because a finance broker isn't caught. So a finance broker has to, if they do 1 or 2 home loans a year, right? So you've got to look at the definition of finance broker. But if a finance broker does 1 or 2 home loans a year, they must look at the target market determination and make an assessment that it's fit for purpose. And a mortgage broker may not have to. Now, with all that, and don't get confused by it because there's a but. As I expressed to Treasury yesterday, I said, I know that all the aggregators that we deal with actually don't give a crap anymore. They're just going to turn around and run the best, the design distribution obligations for target market determinations to everyone. So going forward, I just implore all of you to listen to what your aggregator, your ACL, because that's where the law points to, is the ACL. Listen to what their directions are around design and distribution obligations. They are trying to automate everything, so it shouldn't be a huge burden on everyone, right? But it's another box you've got to tick, and if you don't, and you don't pay attention to it, you have a risk of getting clipped, supposedly not by ASIC, but I don't believe that, to be honest with you. Their overreaching means they're going to do their own thing, as far as I'm concerned. But worst case, AFCA. And at the moment, until there are probably some better controls or better minds in AFCA, that's a greater risk. And we have a very good relationship there, so I'm not putting downers on it, but we all know the challenges with AFCA determinations for our industry. So that's a problem with design and distribution obligations. It becomes this imbalance problem between mortgage brokers and finance brokers. It's the same with the best interest duty. And it also plays out in CDR, consumer data right access, right? So what's happened under CDR? So these things all link together. Under CDR, mortgage brokers have been defined as being, oh, now I've lost the term out of my head, as, they come under a category that's been agreed to. And I'm sorry, I've been doing that many things with regulation of late. I'm trying to think of a word and expression, I can't get it out of my head. But again, it falls into that private advice style of space, saying that, look, once again, there's fiduciary duty on planners as there are as brokers, but mortgage brokers. And I said, well, what about finance brokers? No, they don't have a best interest duty. They don't have a fiduciary obligation. So therefore, as a mortgage broker, once it's allowable, and this will be early next year, and we are bringing a solution for access to this, mortgage brokers will be able to access the quick, easy data to help make things more fluid under consumer data right access, but finance brokers won't, because of the stupid imbalance of Treasury screwing things in regards to terminologies between the finance broker industry, including finance brokers and mortgage brokers. It's creating an ongoing complexity with regulation and legislation in the first instance, and it's very, very challenging. So it's something we've all got to watch out. Mortgage brokers are defined as one thing, and they have the greater obligation. Finance brokers, people doing car loans, colloquially, and that's consumer. This is all consumer stuff. Don't go into the commercial areas. Got nothing to do with commercial. But in the consumer space, they don't have the same obligation, but that creates restrictions. Kind of reminds me of vaccines somewhere, but we won't go there. So it's challenging. But that's what's happening on those fronts. And I know, Brett, is that making sense to you?
Yeah, it does. It makes sense to what I'm hearing on the ground is there is a lot of unsurety about what each of these regulations and requirements, that have been brought upon us in the last, 18 months, 2 years. And the big one really has been the RLOs. I see that obviously in my day-to-day business at Olympian, being an RLO provider, is that, there is such a misconception out there about what it is, what people are still to do, whose responsibilities, is it the brokers, is it the aggregators, is it the lenders, the whole concept of responsible borrowing as well. And let's be honest, borrowers are getting smarter and smarter. And, the great Australian dream is to own property, pay it off, and then buy more property. And as I said earlier, never underestimate the customer's ability to get what they want. And we are seeing that the customers are getting smarter around avoiding some of these new requirements that are being placed on us as brokers and our industry. And so you do have to get smarter and cagier and have more understanding. And as Pete, you just said, whilst we can provide as much information as possible as an industry body, our members really must rely on what their aggregator and their credit license holder provides them, because that's where it comes from. And it doesn't take long then for an AFCA or an ARCA to come after the broker and the distribution in view of the customer. So, look, what you've said really hits on great. And I do think the next big battleground is around open banking and is around the authorised data recipients and who can have access to data and what data they can have access and who provides the authority. And I know as a 30-something year industry veteran, I'm not entirely keen to know that the bank number one that I bank with can share my data with bank number two and bank number three without my permission. And what data can they share? So that is going to make life more difficult as things become automated, as the neobanks, and you look at what AFG did when they purchased Volt, buying a digital bank so that they can have a digital program. The world is going digital. The world is being completely digitized because of this. Our phones, we're now being encouraged to have our vaccine passports on our phones, a proof of vaccination. We are going into a jab versus no jab society. I think I coined the term with some friends the other day that we're about to hit vaccine apartheid, because it is going to be the haves versus the have-nots. And there is a bit of that in our industry as well, like you just said, Peter, with brokers versus mortgage brokers. So
it's challenging. So with the consumer data access rights, we are currently in discussions with a provider who has the legal access to obtain that. So we're going to provide a solution for members, right? I don't know whether or not I can provide that solution to everyone or just to the mortgage brokers component, but the broker doesn't have to have the right of access. This platform has the right of access. They get the consent on behalf of the client and the consent to share the data back to the broker. It's all done like that. But that's still the calm and it's a work in progress. But on the responsible lending, one of the other issues that revolve around there, and the problem that I've had from day one, is under the repeals that are being considered, what they're saying is all the ADIs, so all the banks, the deposit-taking institutions, would continue to be governed by APRA. And as I said, the banks have been doing this before ASIC was around, kind of stuff. So that's okay, I'm good with that. And a part of that was also saying that the borrower has accountability. So if the borrower bullshits to you, you've got an avenue of giving them a belt on the way through, right? Because sometimes people just blatantly lie to you and you don't know it till it's too late and you're the one getting shot for it, right? So there are accountabilities and responsibilities to the borrower as well. But the challenge is that all the non-banks, the non-ADIs, those that don't take deposits from consumers, so all the non-banks in Australia would be governed by ASIC. The problem with that is ASIC's constantly overreaching the law. The best interest duty was it. Credit cards in a bundle were never meant to be caught by bid. We had a commitment by government and Treasury that the best interest duty only applied to the predominant debt within the bundled product. ASIC came out with their regulatory guidance and said, no, you're going to have to apply the duty to every product within the bundle. That's not what the law says. Right? Law doesn't say that. We fought hard on this and spent a lot of money fighting it on behalf of our members, so it was right. But then ASIC just said, bugger you, this is what's going to happen. So we now have a big risk under this repeal if it goes through, and we still have the same old battle today if it doesn't. But if it does go through, that the non-banks will be disadvantaged because they don't come under APRA, and they're going to wind up with a standard up here somewhere while the bank standard is here, and not saying that the bank standard's wrong because it's right, but they're going to have this high duty, this higher obligation by ASIC if the responsible lending repeals go through, which will become an anti-competitive environment. So it'll be easy to get the loan through the bank, but it will be the non-banks. The non-banks going to be hit with all this unnecessary additional regulation.
I think, as you said, Peter, the RLOs have been around since RG 209 was first introduced, and all that happened with the Hayne Royal Commission was that some bean counters put a microscope over it and decided to make a whole lot more onerous requirements on the broker community, and it really took the entire lending, in my view, the entire lending decisioning process out of the customer's mind and what the customer wanted into a process that the government says, well, this is how you can borrow and this is what you can borrow and when you can borrow. And it became a much more controlled environment under the guise of supposedly getting rid of fraud and all those sorts of things. Well, I think we all know that a lot of the fraud is not necessarily industry-based and broker. The customers are doing it themselves to get that property. And we're seeing that a lot, and brokers see that too. So, yeah, I think it is a minefield that thank God you're fighting the fight for us, I must say, because I'd probably pull out what little hair I have left. I had to be doing this.
Sorry, brother, I'm joining you. It's getting mighty thin on top of you too. So here is I've just changed screens. There's some more things here that we're working on. I'll move on from those pieces, but they were just important because these things that we've just been speaking about have all escalated their conversations over the last couple of weeks. And I'm concerned that some of the commentary in the media or going around industry actually isn't correct. And we just need to watch our guards on that, because I'd hate anyone to be caught and sort of go, oh, geez, you didn't tell me anything about that. You're told. There's a whole lot of other things that we're working on at the moment between credit reference. The credit reference checking protocols to start in October are actually quite a good piece. If it comes good, right, I'm going to say if it does, say goodbye to separation letters, right? The whole purpose of this is to get rid of separation letters, or one of its major purposes. Sorry, I should put it that way. Get rid of separation letters, right? So this is reference checking, like if you're doing a beginning employee, you do a reference check on that. It's the same thing with movement of brokers through the industry. And there are quite significant fines for those that don't comply or those that breach the reference checking protocols. So kind of hoping that it works. And if it does, it will get rid of a bit of heartache. And that heartache will be, unless you've got proof of something on me, then you can't say it. And if you can't turn around and just say, I'm not going to say, because by law, you will have to comment, right? So you stump up with the truth. If you've got a problem, tell it to us and let's all be open and deal with it. Otherwise, pull your head in and we're moving forward. That's basically the way I see it. We're working on some stuff at the moment with WA, electronic mortgages. I was in a meeting back on actually the 4th of August, because I sent this guy a paper yesterday, on the 4th of August with the senior minister, again, within the Treasurer's cabinet as such, but also a spin-off from, I was asked to present on behalf of industry, the House of Representatives Standing Committee on Economics a few weeks ago, and they're talking about this as well, is all about digital signatures and electronic mortgages. Government unquestionably has a desire to move firmly into that as a permanent situation. So that would be a good thing to be able to do digital signatures, digital meetings that are validated, digital mortgages, which will then take us into another era within our industry, which will be a good thing. Some more stuff happening. Sorry.
You talk about digital signatures there, Pete, because obviously under our COVID lockdowns and the restrictions over the last 18 months, digital signatures were able to be put on contracts, were able to be put on things. And there was only a finite period of when that, and now it's back to wet signatures again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it was, they claimed it all as interim measures.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is silly, right? You know, they still work. You know, there's enough technology and platforms out there. There's scanning systems, there's everything. And I'm not certainly sure that a wet signature on a piece of paper that I then run through my scanner and email you is any more secure than is still a digital signature as far as I'm concerned.
You telling me something?
Oh, well, I don't know, mate. I tell you, those interim measures aren't really that crazy.
Yeah.
I think all the brokers will be the same thing. I reckon if you ask our members to put their hands up on today, how many have been caught out? And I know caught out's not the right word, but being pulled over the coals by a lender saying, "Oh, that's not a wet signature." It's like, well, hang on, I've faxed it or I've emailed it to you. I've got a wet signature. So yeah, it's crazy.
It's challenging. But anyhow, look, the endeavour is to make it permanent, but they've got to change some laws to do it. So there's a whole host of things happening nationally, and WA will create some foundations for this as well with the electronic mortgages piece they're working on. And that should bring it all together so that when temporary measures can finish, they'll become better permanent measures than what they are today. That's the design that's being worked on. Compensation scheme of last resort. It's a part of the AFCA model, and it's basically everybody contributes $28 to a pool. And if for some reason somebody gets shot by AFCA and the person doesn't have the money to pay the compensation, it will come out of this pool. And the pools are segregated by industry. So it's not like anything that brokers put into a pool will get used by planners or by banks. It's all segregated out. It's still under discussion, but yeah, it's just one of those things. It's just another goddamn cost. It was a conversation at the House of Reps where I spoke in part around that, and I'm actually speaking a lot further with the chairman of that committee, the Standing Committee on Economics, in the coming weeks around all that. I've had some interesting conversations with the Productivity Commissioner and also in that House of Reps meeting, and they all revolve around the same thing: small business lending and commercial lending. Now, a lot of people have asked me in the past saying, "Hey, Whitey, is commercial and business lending going to come in and be a part of the NCCP?" And I've always said no, and it's not even on the table as a conversation. So don't go there. It's not happening. It's all good. It's never going to come under the NCCP. I can tell you that still today. But it's now a conversation on the table of politicians and the table of regulators. So it's very early days. Don't ask me questions on it because I'm telling you all I can tell you or all I know at the moment. It's a conversation that started. I can look back on history and whether it's broker remunerations back in 2015-16 when that first started, whether it's leading around the 2005-2006 era when we came out of the UCCC into the NCCP. These things have a similar start. This has a similar start. So my gut says there is going to be some further regulation come out to strict or true business lending or SME lending and commercial lending, which will be based around education. This is where the conversations will be. Education and maybe some stricter guidelines out from ASIC, but not under the NCCP. Don't go there. Because that last piece on the list there where I talk about 2022 remuneration review and the research we've been doing, I'm about to give these guys a whole lot of research. I'm having these conversations, and it's a part of my segue to talk further about where their thoughts are with the commercial lending arenas and the SME sector lending as well. So I will get more on this. I need to get further inside their heads. I have very good relationships with all the people I need to have that conversation. And then we can start planning how we can best navigate that and not be dragged through the hedge by these people on it. So more as it comes, and that really is the sum of what I can say at the moment, or what I know at the moment. It's not what I can say, it's what I know. And then that last piece on the review, the remuneration review. So the FBAA has just finished 5 pieces of independent research. And I have our regulatory writer putting a brief across the top of all the key outcomes of this research, which I'm then about to take to all the politicians and the key regulators, including the ACCC and the Council of Financial Regulators who are running this remuneration review, which is one of those last pieces out of the Financial Services Royal Commission. dumping this on them and having conversations with them as to why basically there is nothing to see here. Our research unequivocally, without us steering it, trying to create an angle on it, trying to get our outcome versus a real outcome, which could be the same but might be different, supports our industry unquestionably. Right? So we're putting that to make sure that when this review finalises, it basically says there's nothing to see here, so bugger off and go away. Yeah, that's basically it. And we were actually given that promise back in early 2019, just before the last federal election, that government said when they finish this piece on the remuneration review out of the back of the Financial Services Royal Commission, it's basically, yes, we're going to do it because we're obligated to, but we're not going to be changing anything on brokers. They gave us that commitment. We'll hold them to that commitment until somebody buries me 6 foot under. And our research, rather than rhetoric, backs it all. So I don't see, and based on the conversation back then, based on what the research says and the market says and what consumer borrowers say, there is no need for anything to change. And I do not believe it will. Right? But we've got to go into bat. We've got to have the fight. We've got to throw a few punches, but the bell will ring and it's our hand that will go up as a winner. All right. Cool. For some reason, I'm getting a little lag on my computer here, but I'm going to try and do that.
I think that's
Hey, that worked. So I've spoken about the House of Reps.
Yeah.
Sorry, Brett.
No, I would say so. I think that's how the Zoom's working at the moment with so many people on it. Everything runs a bit slower.
Yeah, I'm getting old and run a bit slower, so so it's all right. I just change the way I do it. So with all the regulations on here, again, the reason why I go through it is I don't want you to worry about it because this always happens. And it's not waiting for things to pass and then we're over it, because we're never over it. I've been doing this gig since 2008 with the regulation. I've been involved with the FBAA since 2003. I took over this piece in 2008. It only increases, but that's what we're here for. This is why we do it. And it's why it's me who's doing it. So I've been around for over 4 decades now in this industry. And as I've been dealing with the politicians and the regulators since 2008, so I know many of them, and admittedly some come and some go, but there's some key players in there that we have very good relationships, we're very close to. And it's a matter of just learning how to do that dance in the rain to make sure that we keep going and we get the best outcomes that are possible and we keep you as informed as possible. So, yeah, so tried to do first thing today with my opening comments around the responsible lending extension of Ddos and CDR, just for a few acronyms. But in the meantime, we will always continue to do this. We'll always be talking to the media. We're putting out new styles of bulletins to self to make sure we keep you up to date with everything that we're doing. Because the one benefit of the media, I tell you now, all the politicians that are connected to us read our stuff. And even those that aren't, read all of our stuff that we put in the media. They watch all of our video bulletins. That's why sometimes people say, oh, why you didn't go hard enough? So I know at the end of the day, I've got to talk to a politician or to a regulator to get the angle I want. And sometimes you can't go as hard as you want, but you still got to get your message across. So we will continue that fight so that when we're talking to these mugs, that we'll ensure that we get the outcomes that are best that we can and not be shafted along the way. And it's important that we do that, whether it be prime ministers, treasurers, financial services ministers, opposition, government, state premiers, you name it, we're in the middle of it, right? To make sure that our conversations are consistently across everyone so that nobody says, oh, you're saying something to me here, but you're saying something over there. It's a consistent conversation and we reach everyone that we need to reach to make sure that things happen the right way. And look at that, down the bottom there, next to Malcolm Fraser. You see that one? What a great man.
I can see that one, mate. Yeah, you mean Malcolm Turnbull, mate. Malcolm Fraser's dead.
Yeah, Turnbull's there. The new shadow or the current shadow treasurer is on the other side. There's a wonderful man and a man who's very dear to my heart and a mentor to me and just happened to be Brett's dad. He's a wonderful, wonderful man.
He's a wonderful man.
Let me move on. So whilst we're dealing with media, whilst we're dealing with politicians, we're dealing with things internationally through the INBF. It's something that I set up on behalf of the FBAA with our counterparts in Canada. And it's now a collaboration of all those countries that you see listed there. Why? Because when our regulators and our politicians look at developing legislation for our industry and for the country, they go and talk to people overseas and say, how did you deal with that? Canada's a common one, so is the UK. Yeah, Netherlands was talked about a lot through the Royal Commission, and I actually was over there in the Netherlands during that period as well, getting even deeper intel from what goes on there. We need to have those conversations with them internationally, and we do it through the IMBF, where I'm the chairman of it, and it's a great platform for us to stay ahead of the curve. Very important that we're ahead of that curve. The other pieces that we're involved in is I sit as on the advisory board for the Small Business Association. Why? Because you're all small business people. So we want to make sure that whatever the conversations are happening within small business land, that we're also in front of. And generally we are anyhow, but quite often things happen at state levels or at other levels that we may or may not see on a direct basis. So it's important that we stay in front of us all. So we sit on that and do the same thing there. And you know, all of this is about having your back. We try and do it in the regulatory and political world. We try and do it in the practical world. So for the third year in a row, I lobbied our board of directors not to increase membership fees. Where others have, we didn't. We don't want it. Not unless we have to. And that day will come, but it isn't now. So again, another 12 months, we're not, before we even look at this again, we're currently $85 a year cheaper than what you'll go if you want to go elsewhere. And together with shift payments, you get a $200 rebate when you join with them as well to pay your membership fees. There's all the free content and all that good stuff that we provide you. Oh, don't forget, I think, Brett, you might touch on it, our new member benefits program. We touched on it earlier. It is brilliant. Over 4,500 products, all the stuff we used to have, plus this massive range of new stuff. It is fantastic. Get in there and have a look.
Just the gift cards alone, I know with what my wife spends, and it's great for birthdays, Christmas coming up, mate, I'm sorted. I'm just going to log online, go to my member site, buy the $100 gift card for my brothers and my nephews and that, and I only pay $96 or $95 or whatever it is. It's great.
Does that mean I owe you an apology? It made it too easy for your wife?
Yeah, you probably have. That's right. Yes, I haven't told her the member benefits yet. You see, so
so anyhow, it's there. Get in and have a look at it. It's absolutely brilliant. So yeah, this year has been a huge year for the FBAA. We've done the new website. We've done the new CRM platform. We call it PIX. So that's where all your details are. So you can manage that. It then connects you into this member benefits program. We've got a new education platform launching. We have a new mentoring structure coming out as well, which will be a great piece for everyone. And yeah, there is so much more happening that we're trying to finalise and sort of get on top of it, watch and see how it goes, and then we'll work on next year as to what's next. There's always something next. Oh, there you go. That's the piece on Get Capital. So if you do want to renew your membership, then log in and sign up on shift payments. It will give you a $200 cash back. So it actually means your membership's $200 cheaper. It's a one-off. It doesn't happen every year, sorry. But it means it's in your favour, looking after you. And that's the important thing to me. So with all that, keep focused. Don't get too distracted with everything that's going on around the world. And let your journey be your journey. So that's the most important thing. What I do today, I'd never planned in my wildest dreams career. I actually, when I was a kid, thought that I would be a commercial pilot, flying planes. And I could fly a private plane before I could drive a car. My dad used to take me out to Bankstown Airport as a kid when I was in high school, and me and a buddy of mine would go out there and fly planes for an hour or an hour and a half, and it was a part of our tuition and a part of that original progress to become a commercial pilot. Now, for any of you who are old enough, you may remember a jazz musician called James Morrison, who's a trumpeter, very famous. He and I are school buddies, we're mates, we're the same age. I used to fly with his brother, John, who's the drummer, and his dad. And James went on to get his commercial pilot licenses, he went by as well. We used to fly together, and that was our gig. But that didn't work out that way. I had a spinal fusion when I was 18. I had a 70% chance of being in a wheelchair. It took me 6 months to learn to walk again. Obviously, it sort of worked out okay. I wound up doing martial arts and riding motorbikes, so I can't complain. But my career changed. My journey was different. And what I do today actually isn't a job. It's actually not even part of my career. It's actually my life's journey. I'm extraordinarily passionate about what I do. And the way I go about things is all about the industry. So, don't be concerned if your journey changes. You keep focused on going forward. It may go straight, it may bend around a bit, but you keep focused on that. We'll take care of the crap at the back end, and enjoy your journeys. It's so, so important. It's your future, and make the most of it, because, as it says at the bottom there, doubts kill more dreams than failure ever will. So don't doubt where you're going. Just keep going forward. And as we're coming up to next week, and I know, Brett, we've both touched on it a bit earlier on, mental health. And we need just to look after one another. The whole Are You OK Day thing, you probably see me having a sip of water. Oh, look, it's disappeared in the ether.
We've also got the
There it is.
We've got the RUK webinar event invite in the comment section too. Yesterday as well as today. So it's worthwhile. It's such a great initiative, and particularly in the world that we're in today.
And Are You OK is all about having a conversation. And we need to have this conversation because mental health hits it all. My wife suffers from depression. My stepdaughter has special needs. And I can tell you now, it's a really difficult gig for a mum. It's difficult enough for me. That's why I get out on the motorbike, Brett, and go for a ride. It clears my head.
Maybe I can go 5Ks around the block, right? That's all.
I'll let it go. I got in trouble last night. The conference call I had with Senator Hume last night was about 9 o'clock at night, and I made a slight comment of 27 degrees and blue skies, and it probably wasn't as well received as what it could have been.
We've got 25 degrees and blue skies today, but we can only go 5Ks.
You can get out for a little bit.
That's true.
Look at the positive side.
Agreed.
But about this slide, last year what happened, well, you're probably aware, if you're not, you're going to be, that every year, or every day, I should say, 8 people commit suicide from mental health issues, right? Depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, and so on. 8 people every day die. What has transpired is that out of that 8, it is now 6 of those people are men. So guys, we've got a problem. You need to reach out to one another, you need to look after one another. And of course, that doesn't exclude the women. It's just reflecting on data. There is an increase in the male population. And that goes for women reaching out to men, all that sort of stuff. Look after one another, have a conversation. Just ring up and say, "G'day, how you going?" It's not ring up and say, "You're suffering from depression at the moment." That's not it. It's not it. It's about just checking in and being a friend, being a mate. That's what it's about. So make sure you do. There's our confidential counselling helpline that we spoke about before. Use it. It's free. Suncorp, wonderful people at Suncorp, pick up the bill, because nothing in this life's free, we know that. Suncorp picks up the bill. Assure the professional counsellors that do the counselling service for you. They do not tell us anything. The only thing that happens is that Suncorp gets a little tally and says, this is the bill you need to pay because X amount of people use the services. They pay the bill. So use it. It's there for you for a good reason. And mate, I think I'm pretty well done. Oh, yeah, just following up.
You've done most of my wrap up as well, mate, which is great.
Sorry, bro. One last thing that I don't want to forget, and it's in line with the mental health piece. Things are really stressful for everyone. We see it with members that call up here in the office. We certainly talk to each other. Conversations have changed a bit. Can I just ask that everyone be respectful to each other? It's what we use at the board called UPR, unconditional positive regard. We don't have to agree with everyone, right? We can have really strong and passionate debates, but we always walk away friends. We always walk away mates because we respect one another. So I ask you all just to be mindful of that, be respectful to each other. And if there are any bad behaviours in the industry that you're seeing, they've got to stop and we need to call it out. And that's a little bit reflective on my experiences in bygone years with women suffering from sexual harassment and bullying and so on. And I say to you guys out there, if you see it, call it out. And ladies, if you're having problems and challenges in that area, reach out, because I most certainly will stand beside you, and so will many other members in our industry that I know will stand beside you as well. It's not to happen. It can't happen. Don't say it doesn't, because I have seen multiple cases of harassment against women and bullying and so on, and it's from our industry, and it's just not on, and I won't stand for it. I guess the fortunate thing is now that ladies are prepared to say something about it, where in the past they weren't. Well, don't be shy, reach out. I'm here to help, and so are many others. And with that, I think, my friend, this last one, I am done unless there are any questions I need to answer.
No, there's
Don't
no-
forget the conference. Don't forget the conference. There's some updates coming soon.
It's Friday the 5th of November. It's Melbourne Cup week. Not that we're going to be at the races, but it's Melbourne Cup week. Hopefully we will be able to be there. Let us.
Well, I'm going to do something to make it happen. So bear with me. Next week, you'll get a bit more.
Yes, I saw there was a photo of you with the lovely Mrs. Palachuk, and so hopefully you can convince her to open it up for us Victorians. All right, well, Pete, look, I really want to thank you for this, mate. I know we've gone over time, so thank God we didn't have Ash, otherwise we'd be here till 2 o'clock this afternoon. But
By the way, I went to a bit more detail, mate. So
exactly right, I know, which was great. So I think everybody really appreciated it too, mate. I know every time we talk, I always love listening to you and learning, and it's great to see that the old man gets a plug, but occasionally, you know, he can be in the background nowadays, my old man. Look, I also just want to let everybody know, just in following up, you know, I'm here, Leah's here, Peter's here, all of us, all of our state councils are here for you whenever you need us. You will, after this e-summit, you guys are going to get your CPD points emails, you'll get a survey. I encourage you to, you know, look at the sponsors. I want to thank all of our sponsors again. Don't need to name them all. They're all there. You've heard from most of them over the last 2 days. Don't forget, as Peter said, we're pretty passionate about mental health at the moment. We always have been, but certainly with the Are You OK Day coming up next week, I'll see you there. You get 3.5 hours, 3.5 CPD points for attending that. So register now. It's a great thing. I'll be on there and I will be listening in as well. Go to our YouTube channel. You'll see all the stuff there. Grab your CPD hours, register for upcoming things. We will have Ash's presentation on there as soon as he's back up to date. And as I said, I wish his father a speedy recovery. And from me, look after yourselves, look after your family, look after your friends. Hopefully enjoy the sunshine today and tomorrow, because the weekend's going to be rainy and crappy. Great day to sit inside and watch the horse races if you're into horses like I am, but or great day to just spend a little bit more time with the family or do in the backyard or whatever it is you're going to do. So everybody, from me to you, have a great day and thank you for attending. Take care, everybody. Cheers.